The traditional Zulu, who worships the ancestors and believes in evil spirits, knows only three possible causes for evil. The first one is somebody has bewitched me and therefore I am in trouble. The second is that the ancestral spirits are angry with me because I have not sacrificed enough. And the third is that some other evil spirits haunt me in my life. It is more than understandable that somebody who lives with these beliefs and has nothing to do with human immunodeficiency viruses cannot understand what it is all about. That he does not know what germs are and that he is supposed to protect himself from them. Therefore, it is sometimes very difficult for us to attend to people because there are patients admitted who say, "I've been poisoned. Witchcraft medicine was mixed into my food and therefore I have contracted HIV and got AIDS." The majority of our patients, and it's difficult to express this in a percentage, but I believe I do not exaggerate when I say that 90% suffer from AIDS. And AIDS rarely occurs on its own. It mostly comes in the triple combination AIDS, tuberculosis, and sexually transmitted diseases. Why and when we admit a patient here does not depend so much on the diagnosis, but it depends on the actual need of the patient. In other words, we admit patients here who cannot be nursed adequately at home.
Okay.
AIDS is very prevalent in Zululand. And talking of Zululand, that's the place where I stay, and that's my diocese is in Zululand. There's some truth, certainly, that we are really in trouble here in Zululand, in my area, in my diocese, and more especially near the sea. There's kind of what we call sea belt. Over there, one has discovered and seen that there's lots of people suffering from AIDS and lots of people dying from AIDS. I'm not saying it's only there, but it's very strong there. Areas of Mandini, right up Holy Cross, right up to Mpangeni, and over Esikawini and Richards Bay. There's lots of people dying from AIDS there. I'm thankful that we have taken up the challenge, as it were, somehow, in our diocese. And we have the hospice wherein people are cared for. And it was started through the help of the missionary by the name of Father Gérard, when he founded a group or an association by the name of Blessed Gérard. Many people have been actually assisted through this, and it is of great help in our diocese, I think. It's known now all over the country, as it were, and I'm happy that it is the part of the work of the church that is kind of being demonstrated there.
Until 40 years ago, this area was dense bush. Then a big paper factory was built here and had to employ many workers. These workers were recruited in the surrounding areas and they settled in the vicinity of the factory. According to the former apartheid system, which was still in power in those days, there was a large township, a ghetto for black people, and a settlement for white people, a settlement for Indians, and a settlement for colored people. In this black ghetto, the people are housed in partly very poor circumstances, which is a breeding ground of sickness, of course. But that is not all. There is very severe poverty in our area. The official unemployment rate for the country is 52% of the employable population. This causes people to take desperate measures just to survive. If one does not know how to pay for one's rent, if one does not know what to put on the table to eat, if one does not know how to clothe oneself and the children, then one might often choose methods and ways out which they normally would not consider. This is why, unfortunately, prostitution has become very common here. Young women and girls sell themselves so that at least they can earn a living and care for their children. That is, of course, a breeding ground for HIV and AIDS, and therefore the disaster is pre-programmed. One single incident of intercourse with an HIV/AIDS carrier can be a death sentence. Therefore, it is extremely difficult in our AIDS education to make it clear to people how they should behave. 88% of people tested for AIDS in our area of Sundumbili and Isitebe are HIV positive. This is the overwhelming truth. One asks, can this be at all possible? But we see the very sad reality here, day by day. into this area as the parish priest in 1990. In this position, and especially as a missionary, I was of course in charge of everything, especially when people are in need of any particular care. One day I was called to bring communion of the sick to a dying lady. I visited her, and I had done so before regularly. And when I arrived, I noticed that she was in a very bad condition. She had terrible bed sores, and she was totally emaciated. I gave her communion of the sick, and I gave her the anointing of the sick, and I said to her, I really would be glad if you would allow me to bring you to a good doctor. But I don't have any money, she said to me. And I said, let that be my worry, because I think you really need a good doctor. She agreed, and then I put a mattress on the back of my pickup. I laid her on it, and I took her to the doctor. The doctor was Dr. Paul Tabete from Sundumbili, and when we arrived there he said, for heaven's sake, she must go to hospital immediately. And she was transferred to hospital, and she died there in the same night. When I met Dr. Tabete again, he said to me, Father, can't we do something? There are so many people here who simply die from malnutrition or from being totally neglected at home, and that should not happen. This kind of thing should not be a cause of death. And by saying so, he was knocking on open doors with me. The second event, which was very impressive, was this. There were two very poor families here in Malini, living in one house. The father had no work, they could not feed their 7 children, and the landlord who they had rented a house from had threatened to evict them. They had nothing to eat and nothing to wear, a totally desperate situation. As usual, when people are desperate, they come to the Catholic Church, even if they are not Catholics. And on Sunday after the service, I made an announcement in church, and I asked, is there anybody who could possibly help to get these totally desperate families back on track again? A member of the pastoral council, Mrs. Kokov, responded and said, oh yes, we can do something to organize help. She went off, and a day later she had organized the whole parish and other people too. Some brought food, others brought clothes, others got the children back to school, and others even found jobs for the men, so that within 3 months the need of the families was alleviated. That was an inspiring revelation to me. While there are people here in South Africa who know how to organize help. And this was exactly the spark that I needed. As I've been involved with the work of the Order of Malta in Germany for more than 30 years, where organizing help became my second nature, it struck me, and I said, let's plan and do something to help the people here in Zululand on a long-term basis. And I said to myself, it would be good to found an organization within the country where the indigenous people make plans on how to give help to the local people who are in any kind of need. And therefore I founded an organization of South Africans which is based here and works with local people.
Well, when people look at what the Brotherhood of Blessed Charity is doing in this area, they see that somebody cares. Somebody really cares. Somebody cares whether you have, it does not matter what kind of illness you have, but they are prepared to help, to give their time, to give their love, and to care for the people. Specifically, I think people see that Christians not only talk, but they actually go out and do what Christ taught them to do, to help the poor, to help the sick, and the Brotherhood wants to show that Christians should not just talk and sit down, but Christians must go out and be seen to be doing something for everybody. It also gives Christians or parishioners a challenge to get involved and with the Brotherhood, and also come and make their contribution through caring for other people who need their care, who need their love. Not only by giving money, but by coming to the care center to work as active members and volunteers.
My personal motivation in founding the Brotherhood was to help the community in the area. There was so much poverty and so many social problems in the community, especially family problems, that it was a way for me to get involved and to help in a way that would make a big difference to the community.
Our Brotherhood is named after Blessed Gérard. He lived at the transition from the 11th to the 12th century. He was a Benedictine monk and the guest master of the Benedictine monastery St. Maria Latina in Jerusalem. Numerous pilgrims found accommodation in the guest house. They came to see the places where Jesus lived and where he died and where he rose from the dead. But because the journeys in those days were a great strain, most of the pilgrims arrived in Jerusalem exhausted and sick. Therefore, the guest house was more a hospital than a hotel. And in those days it was already commonly known as the Hospital of Jerusalem. Apart from nursing the sick, they used to accommodate abandoned children, feed the starving, clothe the needy, and care for discharged prisoners. Blessed Gérard founded the Brotherhood of St. John to run the hospital. This community is the historical root of the Hospital Order of St. John, the oldest hospital order of the Church, which is today known as the Order of Malta. Their spirit and rule is based on Benedictine spirituality. The rule of St. Benedict says in chapter 36, care of the sick must rank above and before all else, so that they may truly be served as Christ. For he said, I was sick, and you visited me. The Brotherhood of Blessed Gérard today wants to revitalize this spirit of the Brotherhood of St. John. It wants to give new life to the charism of these origins and adapt it into the context of our present time and life situation.
That's fine, that's good. Yeah, wonderful.
This is Mr. Joseph Kosa. Mr. Kosa was one of our first patients in our care center. In actual fact, we were once called by people who knew we have a hospice, and they said, look, there's a dying patient and you should look after him. And when I came there, I saw all he had was a stroke, and very bad bed sores. So what we did is we took him in and we healed his bed sores, and we rehabilitated him that far that he even was walking again. And then we discharged him home, and at a later stage he had another stroke, but the problem was this time the family didn't call us, and he was just lying at home and he was totally neglected. They didn't give him food, they didn't give him the care he needed, and he ended up with very bad bed sores again, and he ended up in a very stiff state. I came there when I had a funeral next to his house, and the people told me that, don't you know how sick Mr. Kosa is? And I said, no, I didn't know, and I went in and I saw that he was in an absolute desperate situation. So we took him in again. His whole back was full of wounds, we have closed them all, and what we are now doing is to rehabilitate him, which means to make at least a rest of movement for him possible. And even if you say, okay, he's an old man and you can't do much, we still have to try, because the less he moves, the more pain he gets and the more stiff he gets. So we try to rehabilitate him by doing exercises to loosen his joints and to make his life a little bit more worthwhile living. One could ask, why do we do more than pain control and wait for his death when we admit a terminal patient to the hospice who is in the final stages of AIDS? Firstly, it is our experience that patients who come to us in an absolute miserable condition, where one really thought that they would die within the next few days, frequently even improved when they received the correct medication, painkillers, and especially if indicated, tuberculostatics and antibiotics against other infectious diseases. We have made the experience that many patients improved tremendously, even so far that patients could be discharged home again. Although they still suffer from AIDS, they felt so well that they did not have to be inpatients in a hospice any longer, but were able to return to their own families again. Why is it necessary to do occupational therapy with them? For example, that we play with them, talk with them, that we just want to create a family atmosphere here. We do not want to appear like a hospital. Our house has a family atmosphere where we sing together, dance together, eat together, spend our day together in a very normal way as it would happen in a family setting. And so far, this occupational therapy is a very important task. It also prevents the patients just from lying in bed and waiting for death. It also helps to occupy their thoughts, to make them realize my last days, weeks or months are not just waiting for death, but it is life filled with aims. If we succeed in this, to make the people living the last days and weeks of their lives as worthwhile as possible, then I think we have fulfilled a very important mission. There are several reasons why we do exercises with our patients. One reason is the nature of the Zulu. The sick Zulu has the attitude, now I will lie down, hide in a blanket and wait until it is all over. Then I will get up again and I will be fine. And this is exactly not the case with AIDS. One can lie down in bed for as long as one would like, but the disease will not be cured by practically cutting oneself off from the outside world by staying in bed and not moving. The other reason also has a psychological background. It is important that the patients feel, I am not in a death machine now, where I cannot leave the rail neither to the left nor to the right, but it ends in that gas chamber where I die. This is exactly what we do not want an AIDS patient to feel. But we want to make him enjoy his life. We want to show him that he can spend these last weeks and months of his life really alive, as a person who participates fully and moving is part of this. Not that one would spend the whole day in bed, but that one would actually move.
Oh, you did actually start the walk. There are many reasons for doing this kind of work. First of all, I think my first reason is for being a doctor. And that's something I always wanted to do. And all these years working in the high-tech technology and modern hospitals, I've tried to be a good doctor, and I've really tried through all of it to actually care for the patient behind all the tests and behind all the x-rays and behind all the fancy technology. And the first time I came here, I really came to this place because it was bad weather and I couldn't go and sit on the beach that day. I walked into this place and I found this heaven of care.
When a patient comes to his final stages of life, the most important thing is that we show them affection. That we show them you are not alone. There is somebody who is there for you. There is somebody who holds your hand. You are not dying alone. The important thing is to take the pain away, but not only the pain of the body, but also the pain of loneliness, the pain of being neglected, and the pain of nobody cares for you. And therefore we try to be there with them, to look after them, to hold their hand, to take their pain away and to show them you are not left alone. Somebody holds you and somebody loves you. We also try to show them in this way the love of God, because God loves us and He extends His loving hands onto us, and what we want to do is to join those loving hands of God with the loving hands of the people through our loving hands. By this we want to show them you are loved by God, and as you are now dying, you are going and meet a God who waits for you in His love. This is what we're trying to do in our hospice care, and this is our wonderful vocation. And I'm grateful and glad that God gives us the chance to show His love to these people in these very important moments, which I would nearly call one of the most important moments of their lives, when they're going to meet God, their Creator and their Redeemer.
that we run a sewing school in our house is that we want to help unemployed people through a vocational training as seamstresses so that they can break out of the vicious cycle of poverty. In other words, they can earn their own money, they can support themselves and their families, and to make them independent of charity. In our situation, one must add that it has a wonderful side effect as well, that people are offered an alternative to the probability of earning money through prostitution, out of pure necessity. In this way, they can earn money without submitting themselves to the risk of getting infected with HIV and get AIDS.
Each and every course at the end, they get the certificate of that course. Some of them, they do get the jobs, as I said, but some of them, they're just sewing at their homes and selling the garments that they have made.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Okay, thank you,
We built and we run a pre-primary school and crèche in Webede, which is 25 kilometers outside Mandini. Why do we run a project so far away? The real reason is that this area is very poor. The fathers of the families are often employed far away from home. We call this migrant labor, which means dad works at Durban Harbour or in the gold mines of Johannesburg or wherever, but far away from home. Many of these fathers come home maybe once or twice a year, make mom pregnant again and disappear afterwards. Many of these fathers don't send money home to support their wife and children, and poor mom has to struggle to get on with life on her own. We established the kindergarten to enable these mothers to go to work and therefore earn money for themselves and their children. The second reason is actually that children who grow up in a rural environment enjoy little mental stimulation. Children have difficulties at school if their preschool life revolves around herding cattle, goats and poultry only, and they are deprived from intellectual challenges. Therefore we prepare them properly for school through systematic preschool education.
So bayabethanda ukubona ukuthi indaba esihambelayo iguli zethu sithi kanjalo yonke leyo ukuze nabo bebe nogozi.
Firstly, let's talk about AIDS. I think the first reason why we have such a high incidence of AIDS, I think, is ignorance. People are ignorant. They cannot read on their own in the newspapers and appreciate the danger which surrounds the whole issue of HIV and AIDS. As a result, people still get infected. People do not take the proper precautions to protect themselves. So I would say ignorance is a very big factor. Secondly, we have a lot of poverty around us. Okay, poverty means people are not able to afford good food, and of course then their body resistance is low. It is easy for the virus to attack them, and I think that is also a very important issue. Of course, what causes poverty? It's unemployment. In our area, in the past, we used to have lots of factories. People came from all over the country to get jobs. Many of the factories, in fact, have closed down. But you still have many of these people still in the area. They don't have jobs, so they are poor. and so they cannot sustain themselves. You have a vicious cycle: poverty, malnutrition, low resistance, high incidence of infection. From the unemployment, you also have another problem, because the young girls now, they are out of work, so they have to prostitute to make a living. As a result, of course, the rate of sexually transmitted diseases goes up, and of course the AIDS epidemic is also speeded up in that way. Of course, also because of the fact that you have so many people who have come into this area, you also have the problem of overcrowding, lack of homes for many people. They have to make shacks where they have to stay. And of course, you know, with overcrowding, you have TB becomes rampant.
And I think the biggest suffering of HIV and AIDS is the isolation. It's the isolation of a person being different and being marked as somebody who's diseased. And people isolating you, even their own family members sometimes isolating them, avoiding them, sort of being either ashamed of the disease or being sadly scared that that it will be contagious and that they will become ill. And of course we know it's very well publicized these days what can cause spread of the disease and what doesn't. But there's still a lot of myths and a lot of sad misbeliefs about the disease, that even by shaking somebody's hand, for instance, you can contract the disease. So because of all of that misunderstanding and lack of education, people do get isolated.
HIV stands for human immune virus. That's the little virus that gets into your blood that makes you sick. Okay? AIDS is what you get. It's acquired immune deficiency syndrome, and that's what you get as a result of having the virus in your body. Okay? Acquired means that you get it. You get it from somewhere else. Immune is something in your body that's fighting disease. And that in your body that fights disease is the white blood cells in your blood. We have red blood cells and we have white blood cells. And the white blood cells are what fights disease for our bodies. And that's called our immune system. And a deficiency means a lack of. It means you don't have enough white blood cells to fight disease. And a syndrome are the signs and the symptoms of having the sickness. And that's where AIDS comes from. It comes from having the virus in your body. Okay. I put a post up here with different people on it. Would anybody like to try and guess which one is HIV positive? Or which one has AIDS? Ladies, which one do you say has got AIDS?
No one.
Huh?
No one.
No one? No one? Really? In Esitebi, we've got 88% AIDS rate, HIV rate. Huh? Nobody's got AIDS? Which one? This one? Why that man? Huh? He's going thin?
Yeah.
I think he's got sunglasses and he's cool. I think you may be right, but we can't tell. You can't tell by looking at a person whether or not they have HIV. So let's not criticize people if they are thin. Let's not criticize people if they have TB, because that's not a sign that they have AIDS. It might be, but it's not a definite fact. AIDS is like an mvubu. AIDS is like a hippo. All you see is that little piece on top of the water there, and the rest of it is hidden away from us. And that's the problem with HIV. that we actually don't see it. It's hidden away, and we don't talk about it. And that's why so many of us have got it. We need to talk about it. We need to get that Mbubu out of the water. We need to bring him out into the open. We need to talk about HIV/AIDS. Okay, how does this virus kill our white blood cells? Here we have a white blood cell, and he's a big, strong guy. He's looking after this man who's not yet HIV positive. What happens? Why does that man get sick when he gets the virus? What happens is this. If a normal germ, like a flu germ or a TB germ, comes near any one of us who are not HIV positive, that white blood cell is going to kill the germ and protect us. Can you give me the next question, please? But if we are HIV positive, that white blood cell, can you give me the next one, is not really strong enough to protect the man. And so now if we have no white blood cells, we can't fight disease anymore. And that's why people who are HIV positive so often get TB and STDs. Drop. Yes? Okay. The problem is then that this poor little man has got absolutely no protection, because the white blood cells get less and less as the HIV virus grows in his body. And so that man gets weaker and weaker and weaker. For people who don't believe that the HIV virus exists, I'm going to prove to you now that it does. That's a photograph made many times bigger than normal. That's an HIV virus that's in the body of people who are positive. And that's the thing that kills off your white blood cells. That's what it looks like. That's a photograph of it. A real HIV virus. It's not that a condom is absolutely safe. There is no such thing as safe sex. The only way to be absolutely safe is to say, no thank you. I don't want to sleep around. Change your way of life. That's the only safe thing. Okay? Condoms do help. Especially if a man and a wife are both HIV positive. Because you can reinfect yourself. Every time you have sex with somebody who is HIV positive, you are putting more HIV virus into your blood. So you're making your life shorter and shorter. I've had couples come to me and say, but it doesn't matter, we are both positive. It doesn't matter if we have unprotected sex. Every time you are adding more and more virus to your blood, which means you're killing off more and more white blood cells as the time goes by. And it shortens your life so much. What I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm so happy the men decided to come today, if you think that you have been exposed to the HIV virus, go and have a test. People say, why must I have a test? If I'm positive, I'm going to die anyway. Sure. But you can still live for another 12 to 15 years. And so I ask you, please go and have a test. Not so much for your sake, yes, for your sake, but for your family's sake. For your husband, for your wife, for your children. Make sure that you are there for them for as long as possible. And please talk to your husbands and wives about your problems. If you're HIV positive, you must tell your partner. Whoever your partner is, please tell them.
Our founder member, the medical practitioner Dr. Tabete from Sundumbili, and his wife Nokutula, a qualified nursing sister, have initiated a project by which we look after malnourished children. In our clinic we counsel the mothers and teach them how to care for their children properly. We examine the children, we weigh them, and we keep exact records of their progress. And where poverty is the reason for malnutrition, and where breastfeeding is not sufficient or impossible, we give them milk, baby food and protein-enriched porridge free of charge. When children do not get enough protein, they suffer from a sickness which is called kwashiorkor. This is a very tricky disease because the children do not look like one thinks malnourished babies ought to look like, but in the contrary, they appear fat and plump.
Okay, this baby came to our feeding scheme on Saturday, and when we saw how badly malnourished he was, we decided to admit him to the care centre, to the children's home, for about 6 weeks for what we, in our own in-house language, call power feeding. This means that we are going to give him a high-protein diet, which will help to overcome the problems that he has. The problem he has is that he was fed purely on maize porridge and water because of the background of the people. Through this, it causes what we call kwashiorkor, which has an effect on the liver function. And through this, they retain water in their tissues, edema. And this you can see on his face, on his cheeks here, and on his hands and his wrists. You can see how swollen they are, and on his legs and his feet are very badly swollen. What made me worried is that already on the ankles and the wrist the skin is starting to peel, and that's a very bad sign. And this is why we decided that we should actually admit him to the care centre for intense care, and then once he is back in a normal shape again, he'll go back to his mother. And we are now busy admitting him to the children's home. I mean, to keep him quiet, we must give him back to his mother. This is Timber, and Timber came to us when she was 3 months old. She was abused by her mother, and the social workers removed her from the care of the mother and put her into our safekeeping. The social workers are trying to rehabilitate the mother so that Timber can be returned to her, but in the meantime she stays with us, and she has grown and improved like a normal little girl. And as you see, the scar on her leg has almost disappeared now. She's 1.5 years old now, and very happy, normal child. So this is a picture of Timber when she came in. As you can see, she has a burn on her leg, which is from an iron for ironing clothes. This was the abuse that her mother imposed on her, and as you can see, we've healed the wound, and she's now a wonderful little girl. Yes, okay, look. There you go. So, are you all excited? Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Lucy, where's the ball? Don't run away. So, Lucy is now 9 years old. When he came to us, he was 8 years old. He's a very bad epileptic. He had a brain infarction when he was born, and so he is badly mentally retarded. His mother has died of AIDS, but fortunately he is not HIV positive. When he came in, he was badly malnourished, and he wasn't treated either for his epilepsy. He had had no medication, and so he was fitting 4 to 5 times a day. When he came in, this is what he looked like. He weighed 12 kilos at 8 years old. And as you can see, he was badly malnourished. Lucy has been with us for more than a year now, and after only a few weeks of being here with good feeding and constant medication, we got him to a stage where he was responding to us. When he came in, he was totally unresponsive. He wasn't laughing, he wasn't crying, he never got cross, he was never happy, he showed absolutely no emotion, and if you waved your hand in front of his eyes, there was no response. As you can see now from the pictures, there's been a vast improvement in his development. He's put on a lot of weight, he's happy, he's eating properly, and mostly we have managed to control his fitting. Together with the government hospitals, they have helped us an awful lot. So as you can see, Lucy is also very happy, and he will go on to grow into an adult. And what? Oh, good boy. Okay, this little boy, Teminkosi, he's 4 years old. He has been with us for just over a year. He and his mother were both here together, both of them in full-blown AIDS. His mother died here in our hospice last week, and he remains with us at her request. The father is nowhere to be seen, and there are no other family relatives, and so he is truly what we term an AIDS orphan. And we will look after and nurse Teminkosi until the dear Lord calls him. These children normally don't live past the age of 10 years, and so we can give him at least a good few years still that he can grow and have a happy and peaceful life with us. Right, these children in our children's home have various social problems. Some of them are social orphans, some of them are AIDS orphans, and some of them are HIV positive themselves. We have several children who have been abandoned by their parents, and they have been removed by the government social workers and placed in our care. We have, for instance, one child who was abandoned at 3 months old in hospital. His mother took him there because he was sick. She never came back to fetch him, and he grew up in the children's home of a bush hospital for 4 years, until the social workers heard about Blessed Gérard's children's home, and then contacted us and asked us if we would look after him until they could find either an adoptive family or permanent foster care for him. There's another child who has a very sad story. He was abandoned 3 times. First of all, by his mother to his father, and secondly, by his father to the mother of his estranged wife, who was obviously not a blood relative of his. This lady then abused the child. She neglected him and eventually abandoned him to us. We took him over. The poor little child was far behind in his development. He was malnourished and he had wounds all over his body. He is now well adjusted. He is going to the local pre-primary school, and mentally he is coping very well at school. His physical development has improved a lot, and he is fitting into society as a well-adjusted child. We have another couple of children who have been abused by their parents, of alcoholic parents. The social workers have placed them into our care for safekeeping until such time as they can find a permanent solution for their problem. More than likely a foster home. It is because of all these social problems, many of them resulting from AIDS, that the parents are dying from AIDS, that the children are being abandoned for financial reasons because the mother or the father has died of AIDS and left with the granny dies, and the children are being brought up by maybe 11 or 12-year-old brothers and sisters. These children need a home. These children have been placed in our care not only by the social workers but also by parents, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, people who don't know anymore which way to turn. They themselves can't cope financially with their own families, and now they're being asked to take on the responsibility for other people's children. We feel that as Christians we have a responsibility to the society, to the community, that we take these children into our home, that we try to give them as good a start as possible in life. And I think that through this film maybe we can raise the funds to do just that. I think we can see what the children are like. We can see that they are being looked after well. We work mostly with volunteers who come here of their own free will and help us to look after the children. We have in the meantime employed 2 caregivers permanently so the children have some continuity. They have people that they can relate to on an ongoing basis, as a normal family would be. So they have 2 mother figures, perhaps a mother and a father figure, in the caregivers that we've employed. They have the security, they have the continuity, they have the discipline that they want, they have the love that they want from these 2 people, including and over and above the 2 caregivers.
So my motivation why we strengthen the relationship with Blessed Gérard is very simple. I'm coming from an idea that big ideas needs big wings to fly, but in the meantime they need big wheels to land. And I think that there is a good combination here. Big heart and big pragmatism. So they are able to have a good marriage with heart and quality. And this is what impressed me the most. In this structure, people is taken with a lot of heart, but also with a lot of professionality.
The signal that the Brotherhood of Blessed Gérard gives to society, South African society in particular, is that in an area which is the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic in South Africa, the Brotherhood is fulfilling critical need at a very critical time. And the Brotherhood is basically about people helping themselves. And we are demonstrating here in Mandeni that South Africans can indeed help themselves to address this terrible new epidemic, this war with an unseen enemy. And we are doing it with the help of our many faithful volunteers and benefactors, both locally and around the world.
Amen.
It was Blessed Gérard himself who said, our brotherhood will be everlasting, because the ground which this plant is rooted in is the misery of the world, and because, God willing, there will always be people who want to work towards the alleviation of these sufferings and to make this misery more bearable.